Welcome back. Tensions were high last night at a town hall in Florida. Marco Rubio bore the brunt of anger from students and parents fed up with inaction on gun control.
Senator Rubio, can you tell me right now that you will not accept a single donation from the NRA in the future?
So, number one, the positions I hold on these issues of the Second Amendment, I've held since the day I entered office in the city of West Miami as an elected official. Number two, no, the answer to the question is that people buy into my agenda. And I do support the Second Amendment. And I also support the right of you and everyone here to be able to go to school and be safe.
And then they directed their rage at NRA spokeswoman Dana Loesch.
Do you believe that it should be harder to obtain the semi-automatic and weapons and the modifications for these weapons to make them fully automatic like bump stocks?
Do you know that it is not federally required for states to actually report people who are prohibited possessors, crazy people, people who are murderers? No? We've been actually talking about that for a long time. Let me answer the question. Let me answer the question. You can shout me down when I'm finished, but let me answer Emma's question.
Oh, I mean, that's a stark contrast, Juan, between the president's forum yesterday at the White House, which was filled with ideas and emotion and very polite and respectful. Yeah. And that was just really ugly, I thought.
Well, I didn't think it was ugly. I thought it was quite direct. In other words, the president, and was unusual. I think someone here said they thought it was terrific to finally see that kind of discussion. We've seen it before with regard to immigration, but it was fun for people to get a look inside. The difficulty is that people say it's a dog and pony show. He's got his notes. Be sure to say, I hear you and all that. But I appreciate the idea that the president would take the time and make the effort. I don't care about the publicity. I just think that that was sincere, and I hope that it was sincere on his part. Although today when he says, oh, the NRA is patriots, I think, because the real meeting should be, what do you do when someone says, are you going to keep taking money from the NRA, Senator? Well, that's a hard discussion. What about you, Mr. President?
How much does Marco take? You do have to give Marco credit for going into the belly of the beast, because that was a stacked deck there, Kimberly, by the sound of the crowd.
Because guess what? President Trump had the opportunity to go. There are other Republicans who just said no.
Okay. Kimberly?
Well, I mean, I try to focus on the positives. I think, when people show up and they go there and they try to have a civilized discourse, I mean, to me, it's like, you're not getting as much out of that CNN town hall because people are just very rude and very disrespectful, and I don't like that at all. I enjoyed the president's, 2 days of his meetings and listening sessions, because I thought that you really had thoughtful discussion and deliberation and ideas that were, put forth, and I really enjoyed it. But when I see something like this, it just becomes almost like a Roman theater, or, is it going to feed him to the lions next? I'm just not sure what's happening there. Yes, I applaud Marco Rubio and Dana Loesch for going, because they want to actually be part of the solution. They're not afraid to address people who have differing viewpoints. But you want to be able to hear them. Give them the opportunity to speak. Otherwise, it's just very, circusy.
And that was the difference, because there wasn't a lot of listening, it seemed like, last night. It reminded you of one of these college events where a conservative speaker gets up there and everybody just yells and drowns them out, and they don't hear the point of view.
I feel very strongly about the CNN town hall. I thought it was absolutely awful. The White House meeting was able to do what was necessary to combine emotional and rational solutions, emotional feeling and rational solutions. It was a conversation that leads to action. Then it was actually, I felt very hopeful after that. I felt like, my God, for the first time in my life about this issue, something's going to happen. And then CNN comes along and just poops all over that feeling. I'm sorry, but that was the best NRA fundraising letter you will ever see in your life, because you saw people wildly applaud for things that aren't going to happen. The way they treat what was an entire semi-automatic ban, the way they treated the guests who were there on good faith. CNN has a habit, it's a pattern of taking a contentious issue under the guise of concern and then inflaming it. And I remember this with the police shootings. Yeah. That they say, okay, this is a big problem, and it's this attention loop that they keep putting attention on it until the story actually does become the story that they want it to be, and then they do a story on that story, and so it never stops, and then they wonder why there's a Ferguson effect. Why did the cops pull back? Well, maybe they were demonized for 2 years. They're clouded by their confirmation bias, and I want to just end. They can't see how badly the circus was last night. The rest of America saw how bad that circus was. Jake Tapper is the best thing at CNN. He's just probably one of the most balanced, sharpest dudes there. I felt bad for him. I felt that he was not in the environment that he wanted. But that's my opinion.
Well, I think that one of the things that I think if the crowd had not been there,
Yeah.
and if Jake Tapper had been allowed to maybe do more of the moderating
Yes.
and the directing of the discussion,
Yeah.
You might not have had that mentality of the cheering. When we have presidential debates, remember Chris Wallace made
Right.
sure everybody knew, like, don't clap, we don't want to hear anything, and when they, it's inevitable sometimes when you have an audience that happens. I think also that there's the White House setting. It immediately puts
Changes.
everybody on their best behavior.
Right.
Because it is the
True.
#1 place in the world that you would want to be to have a discussion about freedom. Jonathan Tobin at National Review wrote a piece today that I think is really true. He said, the only thing government could do that would give activists what they crave is to repeal the Second Amendment. But Democrats are too politically savvy because they don't want to have that debate, because that would put them at odds with more than half of the country.
Right.
But really, in order to achieve their goals, you would really have to repeal the Second Amendment.
And then they'd never win another election.
Right, and so
again.
when you talk about these practical solutions, it will never be enough
Right.
to satisfy everybody, but you might be able to get some things that will help in some places.
All right. Nancy Pelosi is still raging that you can now keep more of your hard-earned money. Next.